not only was himself giving information to the apartheid state, but he was hiring apartheid agents, known apartheid agents, was giving the newsroom, and he was giving column space to people like Craig Williamson. That's another name, Craig Williamson. And we'll tell you more about Craig Williamson next week. But yes, that's you, Ken Owen. Finally, we have here the name of Diane Kola Bernard. She's an MP right now of the Democratic Alliance. Last week, Kola Bernard revealed some fake news that our sister and mother, Dudumieni, and former President Zuma, and I don't know who else, had been involved in some kind of a hit squad situation. It's a lie. She's continuing the Stratcom program. Remember what Stratcom is. Stratcom is using the news to deceive, use the newspapers to demonize. That's what they did with Umama Winnie Madikizela Mandela. Kola Bernard is now doing it from Parliament. And the media put it everywhere. But now it turns out, well, Diane Kola Bernard is a spy of apartheid. She worked as a journalist for apartheid. She was there and one of those who were doing the dirty job of apartheid. Well, she's now outed. Kola, we know who you are. We know who your handlers. And your dirty work, we know it now. And we can see you continue doing it. That was the list for this week. The list of last week, of course, is out. And we will repeat them. Once we have set all of these 40, we'll repeat them again so that everybody remembers who these people are. Now, the moment we've all been waiting for, I'm going to invite my brother, Tsepo Khadima, to join us in the studio. Please, brother Tsepo. We have a bit of water there for you. Now, many of you must know Brother Tsepo from, well, television.
Yeah, that's best way to put it.
Brother Tsepo is one of the most respected analysts in this country. And what I want us to do, Brother Tsepo, is to really go through this thing called the IPPs. Our people are not being told the truth. And our people don't know that the IPP is the biggest scandal since 1994. Nothing is as big as this. But because, again, it's white monopoly capital, it is not on the news. But also, it looks like a technical thing, IPPs, just even that. So let's start there, Brother Tsepo. What are IPPs?
No, thank you for inviting me, and it is good to talk to or to be here at the headquarters of Black First Land First, a truly revolutionary organization, a revolutionary movement, if I can put it that way. You know, as I was preparing for a discussion today and just thinking about it, it reminded me of the words that were said by Ben Carson, a different Ben Carson, a neurosurgeon who's well respected. And he said that when he was launching his campaign, that he was not going to do or say what is politically expedient, but that he was going to say the truth at all times. And that many people, which unfortunately, by the way, is what is happening in our country, many people are scared to tell the truth or do what is right because they think that there will be somebody from the state security agency who's going to mess up with their family or mess up with them, or that they will have a visitation from the South African Revenue Service officials who are going to come up with an outrageous tax assessment in order to intimidate whoever would be in the Republic of South Africa from doing or saying what is right. So I congratulate you for, regardless of the intimidatory tactics that are leveled at BLF, that you are standing firm. Because it is important, not just for, by the way, ourselves as a people, but that everything that I think you are doing, you are moved, which is the same spirit I'm moving from, that we have to think of the price that was paid by those that came before us. That is therefore important that this freedom, we can make it real. Right now, it is not real. It is an illusion. So it is very important to have voices such as the one as that of Black First, Land First. So
were
when we talk about the
were you removed from television by our enemies, white monopoly capital? Okay, but I see you now. At least others invite you as well, including us.
Well, and I'm happy to be here. What am I saying?
Yeah.
You know, any platform, anywhere, any day. Most certainly, I am always willing to appear on it. But I think people know exactly what they're gonna get. There can be no doubt that whenever platform I come on, they know full well that I will not kowtow. I will say what is right, my message is consistent, and there might be others who believe that the things that I say or the issues that I speak on, the nation ought not to hear those views and that are being articulated. You know, that is fine, but I think we are thankful that today we live in an era where there is ability to fully bring into practice, actual effect, Section 16 of our Constitution, which is that of freedom of expression. So we have freedom of expression here. And I think there are many people out there who will benefit from our discussion. And if there is any media platform which is dissuaded or told not to have people like myself, I think such a media platform is only doing injustice to its own people. First and foremost, going against the Constitution that is of censuring free speech.
But yes, Brother Sepo, what are IPPs?
What are the IPPs? Very good question. The word IPP, or the term or the acronym, stands for Independent Power Producer, electricity effectively. Independent meaning that this is not owned by the state. In South Africa, we have an energy system or electricity in terms of the Act of Parliament has always been the sole preserve of the state. Because electricity fundamentally it is a constitutional right. It has to fall under the Bill of Rights. Most importantly, if you do not have access to electricity, your dignity, as so protected in terms of the Constitution of the Republic, is affected, and therefore your right to dignity is impeded.
So you say independent power producer.
Yes.
This, in terms of your logic, energy, electricity is a fundamental right, it is produced by the state, but now you say independent. This goes against this logic.
Yes, so let's wind the clock back. We have the ruling party being the African National Congress. For quite a while, there are some people that then realized the key things. I think it was Henry Kissinger said that if you want to control the destiny of a nation or the future of a people, you must control their source of food and their source of energy. Energy in terms of oil, energy in terms of electricity. If you can control energy in terms of oil as well as electricity, and then you control food, you control the nation. And that is essentially the situation that we are in. So it is clear now that there are those who would be referred to as the comprador bourgeoisie, meaning the ruling elite in South Africa, and unfortunately in our instance, the ruling party is the African National Congress, that therefore there are leaders within the African National Congress who for a very long time have been convinced, they realized, the value of having the participation in the control of energy and food. And they realized that if Eskom continues to have the sole preserve of electricity supply, it robs them of the opportunity to make mega profits, not just for themselves personally, but for the outside interests who are normally known as investors. So what they've been doing there is that come 2008, when we had load shedding en masse, that load shedding was planned. It was not an innocent load shedding. As early as 2004, already it had been known that by 2008 we were going to run out of electricity. Therefore, we were going to be having load shedding. But they allowed it. They did nothing whatsoever to ensure we avoid the electricity crisis, the load shedding of 2008, Because when 2008 came and like clockwork, load shedding then came, people were in a panic. And as people were in a panic, they were now needing electricity. Getting into the winter in a load shedding, it is an undesirable situation. It therefore justified, the end justified the means. So it then justified to say, but hold on a second, we don't have the money at the state to be able to build on quickly in energy capacity or electricity capacity to ensure there's no load shedding. And then they mischievously then accelerated without resistance from the public to bring about the independent power producers. And these independent power producers were brought in amidst the load shedding, and therefore because the public were so scared of load shedding that they then had no resistance whatsoever. And then they used the law which was crafted in 2004 as well as 2006, which is the Electricity Regulation Act, as well as the National Energy Electricity Regulation Act, that both those two laws were effectively the foundation that was to say you can bring in private sector players into producing electricity. However, on an economic as well as on a technical basis, this was fundamentally flawed because the energy system of South Africa,
before we go there, you are telling us in the nation that the electricity crisis of 2008 was a self-made crisis.
It was by design.
It was by design so that there can be accumulation of profit out of the crisis they have created.
Absolutely.
And not only that, you're saying also surrendering the sovereignty of the state. Because if energy is what you say is what holds the sovereignty of a people, if you have go this way of independent power producers, create a crisis, bring your friends and yourself, profit from it, but surrender sovereignty of a people. This is treason.
That is exactly what has happened, and it is important that the people of this country can become fully aware that this is by design and that in fact their sovereignty or their ability to be able to have the constitutional rights and most of the right to dignity come into effect has been effectively robbed of them, and that they need to do something about it. So what am I saying?
Because this is an important thing. I note the years that you mentioned. The act they brought is 2004, you say around about.
Yes,
the crisis hit us in 2008, of course designed.
Yes.
President Zuma only comes into power in 2009 about, right?
Absolutely.
So this whole state capture, if you like, and this treasonous act happens under the stewardship of Thabo Mbeki, Trevor Manuel, Pravin Gordhan.
Look, it is common cause that former President Thabo Mbeki has in fact supposedly apologized that they did not act sooner to avert the crisis that Eskom found itself in by 2008. That in fact they mothballed, after coming into power, they mothballed some of the power stations, Grootvlei, Camden Power Station, and there were about a number of power stations that were mothballed, which then had to be brought back into service. But by the time they were bringing them back into service, everything was done in such a way that even the public procurement processes were not followed properly. So there was profiteering in bringing those power stations back into service. And again, because of the increased demand, our population, remember, as it is growing, with the increased demand of electricity, it meant that now there was no electricity to give, but it was designed so that the private sector players can come in without resistance. For if the people of South Africa knew as early as 1998 that 10 years later, they were now going to be put in a situation whereby in 2006, electricity was 27 cents per kilowatt hour. A kilowatt hour of electricity, which is, we can look at more or less how many people in their house. Some might use 140 or 150 or 200 kilowatt hours a month, but it was R1, it was 27 cents. Today, South Africans are paying, this is from 2006, in 12 short years, South Africans are paying anywhere between R1.30 and some are paying even R1.60 per kilowatt hour. Meaning, a country such as ours, with the vast coal resources, with the vast other resources such as nuclear, is now paying or charging more for electricity than countries that do not have coal resources. Countries that are importing coal are now able to supply their citizens with electricity at the lower cost per kilowatt hour than South Africa has been able to do. Because there has been a number of things. First, you create a crisis, so you delay the time in which you build the power stations, particularly to Kusile and Medupi. And when you delay, the cost overruns are such that there is nothing but profiteering. So the people have not been honest. And then because everybody, when the light switch tells them everything, when there's no lights, like now, right now as we speak, in Alexandra, the people are having load shedding this whole week. When they've got load shedding, whatever solution you offer them, they will want it because they need energy, it is cold. So therefore they created all of these things to ensure that these private sector players can come in. However, the other treasonous act was, if you look at a country such as China or the United States that are building the solar or wind, even Germany, they design, engineer, fabricate, and manufacture all the components that go into us building this renewable source of energy in country, therefore creating jobs. So